Oh, yeah. I forgot that I was on oxygen. Well, thank you all for joining us today. My name is Dalton. I am on the go-to-market team here at ElevenLabs, which means I have the privilege of working with our end customers and end use cases here at ElevenLabs. And one of those use cases that we are really leaning into these days is in the accessibility and in the medical space. So today we'll be speaking about some of the initiatives and some of the real-life use cases that are live today, leveraging our technology. So really appreciate you all joining. Maybe we can go left to right.
Sure.
Start over here.
Nice to meet everyone. I'm here, Eric Kern, Lenovo Distinguished Engineer. So working with the Scott Morgan Foundation and ElevenLabs and DID to go create some really interesting accessibility technology. So we'll be talking a little bit about that.
My name's LaVon Roberts, and I'm the Executive Director of the Scott Morgan Foundation. I just wanted to stop and say thank you for having us. And it's wonderful to be in the room with partners that were all really very focused on taking a look at extreme disabilities and solving a plethora of problems along the way.
I'm Nachum Lehman, co-founder and technical director at Bridging Voice. It's a nonprofit for ALS patients to give them access to primarily eye tracking technology, which until 5 years ago had a statistic of almost 80% of technology abandonment, which was an abandonment of life. So that's one of the things that we're busy with, and we're big fans of ElevenLabs, maybe even the head of the fan club.
We might have to join.
We're
We're on the same team.
Same team.
Yeah.
Wonderful team.
Very wonderful team.
Well, awesome. Well, accessibility is sometimes used as a buzzword. So maybe, what does it mean for you all? Maybe we start there. What is the definition of accessibility for your use cases and how you all define it?
Yeah, so the way I look at accessibility is it's really like breaking down the barriers for communication. So a lot of us are able to communicate, but a lot of us are not able to communicate in a normal way. So if we can take technology, and we're looking at generative AI technologies, we're looking at eye tracking technologies, different types of technologies, to really enable everyone to be able to communicate at a personal level. That's what I view it as.
Very much building on that. To me, this is not a fancy answer, but I really believe it's the intersection of access and ability. And what do we do, as Eric mentioned, to remove these barriers? And I think zooming out to the big picture is giving someone the mobility they need, as well as the communication that they need. And very much speaking to what you said about a lot of adoption not happening, I would add something that's a very big part of when I speak that I talk about, which is it's not the 2.5 billion people that the World Health Organization has established need assistive tech. It's not the 1 in 4 of us in our world that are dealing with disability. It's 100% of all of us in this room, because we will age into disability in some capacity. It may be temporary. It may be something we age into. So it's very exciting to me that we're finally having conversations with device makers, with people solving barriers to be able to put this together, to have solutions, and some of my views on accessibility. Certainly, in the assistive tech world, which is where I spend most of my time.
I just want to interrupt myself even before I start. I just have to acknowledge that John Costello is here, someone who we are also very big fans of, who's been in the voice, giving people a voice for so many years in the ALS space, which not everyone is familiar with. So just have to acknowledge that a really big person here, big heart, big person, has done a lot for thousands of people, so I think that's important. Accessibility, question was accessibility. So accessibility, to me, accessibility is life itself. It's everything we do is about accessibility. If we take our car somewhere, we take a bike, a scooter, and you go to the refrigerator to open it up to take something out, everything is about access. And there are so many people that don't have the access they need to do basic things, and even as basic as communication. So if you take someone with a severe disability like ALS, where they can't even ask for anything, they can't convey that they have pain, they can't ask for suction or anything like that. It's almost like taking away every bit of their human being there. And just what's amazing is that there are so many miraculous technologies available, like eye tracking, that can give someone that access. We have so many people that are communicating with their family, with their caregivers, they're running their businesses, they're doing everything they want to do through eye tracking. Not the most pleasant way of doing it, but they have the capabilities of getting some big things done. I always think of, Steve Gleason and some of the, people that have big organizations out there. Some of their biggest accomplishments in life happened after they were stuck using an eye tracking for every bit of their daily life. So that's just amazing stuff. I guess that's how I would look at accessibility, life itself.
Oh, thank you for that. And I guess maybe where we'd love to go next is kind of like giving folks the understanding of where we have been in the accessibility and technology partnership, where we are currently, and like where you all see it kind of going. So as the experts here in this space and spending a lot of your time in your career working in this space, maybe helping the people here today understand a little bit about where we have been, where we're currently at, and where we need to go. So curious if you have any thoughts about kind of just like the history of accessibility and where we're currently at.
Yeah, I mean, at Lenovo we have, we make, 5 devices every second, something like that. So incredible. So we make it for the broader population. Yeah, it's weird to say that 25% of the world's computers are Lenovo computers. So 1 out of every 4, roughly. Maybe it's 26%.
34 million annually.
That was 10 seconds later, so maybe it was 10 seconds.
Yeah, so there's another 10 days. Push it out. But these devices, these are communication devices, right? And not everyone can use these communication devices in an equal way. And so where the technology is going is to kind of drop those barriers, of course. But just like in the last 12 months, we've had such advancements in generative AI. Meta came out with Llama 3, right, just recently. That is building this giant supercluster for Llama 4. I was just reading about it, 250,000 H100 GPUs. We did the math, it was like 156,000 homes or something like that, is what's going to take to power the system. But they're building these models so that computers can understand our language. So we no longer have to understand computer language, is how we've done it in the past. When computers talk our language, computers can also, help those that struggle with our language to talk our language as well. And that's where it's going. That's where we're bridging the gap. So some of these keyboards, the eye tracking keyboards that we've talked about, are really neat. But they're letters, right? And you're doing words, and you can do kind of tab complete, or what would you likely say in this scenario. But it gets even more interesting when you start saying, what about training the models so that it knows who you are? So based on what you've either put out in social media, what you've written, what you've talked about, and these models now can emulate who you are. And we've heard about deepfakes and all that, but that technology allows an individual to have prompts that they would say, and these prompts can have choices associated with it. So if I'm an individual and I am no longer able to speak, I can use ElevenLabs to create my new voice. But I can also use this, what's called retrieval augmented generation technology, RAG, to go and use these advanced Llama 4, Llama 3 models and my personal data to actually come up with a sentence of what I would say. Or maybe 3 sentences, and I have eye tracking so I can choose between the 3. These are things that I would normally say. And the beauty of it is, instead of me trying to clunkily using an eye tracking keyboard, I can have a very fast, very intellectual conversation, and it's based on me. So that's where it's going.
So I need to approach my answer with a lot of humility, and especially with the people that are in the room. And I have an interesting background that gives me a particular lens, just to add some context to this conversation. So I come from a startup background. I know what it is to scale a company from 0 to 800, to have an IPO, to have a secondary, and to be flexible and fluid and make things happen and put the right people in the room. I also went back to school and got a graduate degree and decided to write stories about innovators that are doing things like this. And 4 years ago, at the beginning of the pandemic, I met Dr. Peter Scott Morgan. I literally had Accenture hand me a story, and I said, I'm just really tired. I don't want to write any more stories where someone is really not moving the needle. I had zero attachment to ALS. I couldn't have even told you what it was back then. But you know, it was interesting when I first got to know Peter, he'd had a full laryngectomy, and I remember a few things that stood out to me. One was that when he Googled, he did a search on technology and ALS, he found a reclining chair. And so Peter in the UK put together, you know, from Rolls-Royce to just different groups and got them together. One of them was Lenovo, and he started working with a gentleman who used to work with Stephen Hawking, who very much like John has got this history over decades of getting to know this disease. And one thing that bothered me as I was telling the story, I started talking to researchers, was everyone was telling a superficial story. A book was made, a movie's being made, and all the stories centered around world's first cyborg. And I kept thinking, you know, how do we put a story out there and not only, first, we don't want to hurt the ALS community and talk about technologies that exist that people don't have access to. And then more importantly, you know, he had this indomitable spirit to, and he just was brilliant. He heard impossible every single day. He listened, he was thoughtful, and then he would go have 3 surgeries, put them together, publish a paper, and win Oxford's paper of the year. He was that guy. So I got really deep into the weeds, and I started interviewing all the technologists, and the last thing I wanted to do was step back into technology. And there became this tipping point in the story where it was shocking to me as I began to understand the disease, and as you all know, we've been working with this a long time, these are some of the happiest people in the world, that they understand what every single breath means. I don't have bad days anymore. I have days I complain and I'm ashamed of the problems I have, but I look at life completely differently. So I started to go through that journey with Peter, and long story short, one thing led to another. I came to realize that all of these technologies exist, and then I started at ground zero for me, which meant going around the world and looking at every large technology conference, stepping back into that world to make sure there wasn't someone that, you know, was being left behind, some technology that didn't exist, because it did not make sense to me and it didn't have solutions, which we're going to lead up to. Then I spent the next year going to every single disability conference around the world, trying to understand that ecosystem and realizing there was a massive tension in there. Then through, back up one second and just add, what's extraordinary about our foundation, our real currency is in the leadership and the experience. We have an ex-CTO from Lenovo who was part of Stephen Hawking's IT team, who became part of Dr. Peter Scott Morgan's IT team, who's now at NVIDIA. So we're aware of what's coming down the pipeline. We understand, and being able to leverage and have that information and understand how it works together. And then partnering with, you know, the world's largest device maker and being able to put people in the room. And this is where I say I have to be very humble. I'm new to this disease. It's changed my life radically, as did Dr. Peter Scott Morgan, and I just got to this place where I couldn't look away. And I can tell you, my 12 and 16-hour days, there's not a day that I'm shattered at the end of the day and I'm not excited. I'm excited at what exists. I'm excited that Peter's vision, you know, is one of the first PhDs with AI and robotics, that it's being democratized. And I'm excited that the world is changing, that we're finding these solutions and putting them together. Sorry for my long-winded answer.
What do I do if Eric was looking at my notes before? But I do want to talk about that. Maybe I'll do that later by the case study. But I just want to mention something that's really interesting, that my first, since you asked about history, my first connection with assistive technology was over 50 years ago, can you imagine? And it was my father used to take me to a war vet who, my father and this fellow were both in the third invasion of Normandy. And this person, when he came out of the war, he became paralyzed all of a sudden. I don't know what it was. I'm not sure if I ever knew. And my father used to take me to visit him, and the government had paid for him to have, this is 50 years ago, it's just pretty unbelievable. He had a complete sip and puff system with a straw where he could control his TV, he could change the channels. He had a camera outside his door, so if somebody rang his bell, he could change his TV to see who's outside, and he could buzz them in. He had, this was in 72, 73. It's, even today, many people would be impressed by the system, just because people don't know a lot about accessibility, but it's an impressive system even today, and it was available even then. So I got this like little, not unfair, unreal broadening of my imagination right from the get-go. And when I started actually working in assistive technology about 30 years ago, I was like, oh boy, let's see that sip and puff system. I'm like, where is it? It's nowhere. And it's just amazing how there was a slowdown until, I don't know what we want to say, 20 years ago for sure, but and until 10 years ago, things were also just getting up into shape. But now it's exploding all over the place. AI is completely changing everything. On the medical research, clinical side, working with these large data sets and consuming them, these are things that could not have been done before AI. And then some of the things we're working with ElevenLabs are things just a year ago, I would have definitely said it, I would have put money down. No, that's not happening. And this Dalton comes out here and like makes it a reality. I don't know, just amazing.
Not Dalton.
Well, Dalton and Co. So, and that's where the future is, there's no question.
Amazing. So maybe now we shift to a little bit around like the exact, how you all heard about ElevenLabs, your experience with us, and kind of what you all are doing in the real world. Because I think that in the tech industry, so there's a lot of buzzwords and it's a lot of like over promises, right? But like what we really want to focus on today, and what I think ElevenLabs does very well, is like making it tangible for it to be able to be used like right now. So maybe share a little bit about how you came across ElevenLabs, what your experience has been about integrating some of our technology, whether it be voice clones, text-to-speech, or any of the other offerings we have. But maybe you want to start with where you kind of are your history with ElevenLabs.
Yeah, so it's really on the project that we did recently, with Scott Morgan Foundation and Aaron, where we built and we presented at CES, I guess in January this year, where we took Aaron's voice. I know you can talk about this quite a bit in detail, but we took her voice, her old voice, original voice from ElevenLabs, and it's now her voice now, the avatar that we're using. So it's bringing back kind of that voice. That's where I originally saw what ElevenLabs can do. It's quite impressive. And then yesterday you guys were on CNBC. I don't know if you realize that, but there was a deep fake yesterday on CNBC where this guy took, this AI took his own voice and used it. But I think more interesting is where we can take what you guys can do with this technology. So we can take our own voices, and we were actually talking about this earlier today, where we can take our own voices and like record them over the years, and maybe have your voice from when you're 18, right? And go see how that sounds, and then go have your voice from when you're 54, like I am, and see how that sounds, or anything in between. And similar with as we train up these avatars of ourselves, you can also kind of dial up and down your age, which is also some interesting technology that exists. It's possible to do that today, just with all the pieces that we have, just kind of assembling it together. So I think it's really interesting. It's an important piece of the puzzle that we need for all this technology. But we're looking at it as like it's a la carte. So there's we need our voice assistant technology. We need translation in real time. I did this video. It was kind of funny. I just did like this flyover video with my drone of Lenovo. I mean, why wouldn't you have a drone? But and on the roofs of Lenovo, we have 1.9 megawatts of solar. So Lenovo is actually 100% sustainable in the US. I don't know if you know this, but so I did the sustainability video on it. And I did it in English. I had this voiceover. And then I'm like, it'd be really cool to translate it into Mandarin. So I basically sent it, and I did a complete translation into Mandarin. It sounded like me. you know, and I had people texting me going, Aaron, when did you
This guy's here.
Not me. This is what you can do with the technology. It's just fascinating. So.
Well, building on what you said, and also speaking to what you said about how quickly this technology, so much of it is accelerating. So last September, I got a phone call from our communication director, who happens to be at Lenovo, and he wanted someone who was at the beginning of their diagnosis with ALS, and we were going to build a proof of concept with, and we were working with an avatar with a partner of Lenovo's, and I remember sweating bullets, and it was during that time I was describing when I was hopping around the country visiting different companies, and not also, which you can all appreciate, getting at who had what technology, but were they willing to work with other people, and what was their business ethos. So I can remember, like yesterday, sitting in San Sebastian in this, picturesque city with an eye tracking company, and really sweating bullets. And the young woman that we're going to introduce you to and tell you about, her name's Erin, and she was 23 years old, and she'd been diagnosed 3 weeks earlier with ALS. So she had to go into a studio for this avatar and record 500 sentences over 5 hours, and her mother was telling me several things were happening with her ALS in terms of if she read something that was funny, she couldn't stop laughing, and that she was you can appreciate that. She was very, very worried about. I was worried about, could she actually not only stand up, but she'd never, in all the practicing, been able to get more than 40 sentences out. All these things came together. Somehow or other, miraculously, she got those 500 sentences out. I was sitting at the table with the eye tracking company, just like literally just saying, please let this work, please let this work. They captured her voice. This particular company was very rigid about it had to be their voice. So pan forward, we're at CES, and I sit across from, and some of you met my daughter who's in the room. My daughter is that age. And I was sitting across from the mother, who's a single mother like myself, and she got very, very choked up. And as you guys all know, when you work in this community, it's impossible. It's a very emotional and intimate involvement with the people that, we're privileged enough to be able to work with. And so Lily, is the mother's name, broke down crying, and she said, a couple of things. She goes, first of all, I can't believe there are people in the world that are not disabled trying to solve problems for my daughter. And then the second thing she said was, I don't want to give the wrong feedback, I don't want to say too much, but, and she was asking for my advice on how to convey this. She goes, I don't feel like they really captured my daughter. She smiles a lot more, and that voice doesn't really sound like her. So pan forward to the gentleman who we worked with that avatar, went to work for DID, a partner of ElevenLabs, and keeping in mind the context of what I'm saying about, taking 5 hours, those 400 sentences, and a month later, by the way, and you guys can understand this with a fast progression, she couldn't have done that. So I never stopped thinking about the fact that her mother felt like we didn't really capture her. I remember getting on a plane and going to Mobile World in Barcelona, and my conversation sitting across from the founders of DID was, maybe you can't solve this today, but we really need to come closer to capturing someone's essence, and we were talking about sound. Pan forward, that was September. We went and showed that at CES in January, and by, I think it was March, we used less than 2 minutes, maybe it was a 1 minute TikTok video that we found, where Erin had done an interview for college, and we gave her back her voice. And this is the royal we speaking, to your technology. Before her diagnosis, something that could have never happened before, that happened, via email. I got the file. But more importantly, she made a 5-minute video with her mother, talking and laughing and just being herself. In that current iteration, we watched the price go down by a multiple of, I don't know if it was 10 or 20. We brought all of those technology companies, and I imagine you're going to say the same thing. We noticed all over the place. We felt very much as a foundation like a David and Goliath story, and we do believe we will win at the end of the day because we have the world's best technology, and it's not just the best technology, it's the best people that care about the people that we're servicing. And it's not just ALS, it's, as you all know, a plethora of disabilities. But anyhow, to bring that and pay that back forward, I don't have enough words of humility to talk about what it felt like to sit across from a single mom who broke into tears and said, "This is the most beautiful voice I've heard in my entire life." So,
Wow.
yeah, I'm gonna cry.
I
Sorry.
know, I have to prepare for mine, that's the problem, okay.
Want all these stories.
Every one of them is
Yeah.
more emotional than the next. So I was introduced to ElevenLabs, and I'm not good with months and times, but probably about 7-8 months ago. It's like funny how things move so quickly in this space, but one of our ALS clients who had already had voice banked, and they got one of these other typical voices that were made for ALS patients, which I'll talk about in a second, and he went and played for me his voice that he got from ElevenLabs, which was one of the professional voice clones, which is the better type of cloning, and it was indistinguishable from the original video. It's like just indistinguishable. I guess that's the bottom line, right? It's just so amazing. And as soon as I heard it, I was like, we gotta take advantage of this for our clients and figure out how to get this into the hands of more ALS patients. So the first thing I did was try getting in touch with ElevenLabs. Oh, don't try that. So I think I sent a dozen emails until finally I gave up, and I went and we called one of our office assistants, and somehow she found Dalton. I don't know how. Finding him a second time is also not that simple. But and we had a conversation about like what we could do here to go and make this available for more of our patients. In the meantime, we had created a software, because the ElevenLabs voice really is, you can only use it on their website. So someone with ALS can have a lot of difficulty using their eye trackers to go navigate to a website, type in the words, and then just use a website the way it's been designed in its interface. So we created a software using ElevenLabs APIs to, from their eye tracking software, they can just type and they press a button that says on ElevenLabs and it speaks out in their voice. So instantly we had this treasure ready for our ALS patients. So a bunch of them went and started the process of creating their voices. And I'll just give you a couple of quick stories. One of them I think was put in some of the literature for today's panel, Bill Bandanzo, who was the CEO of Spirit Airlines, and he has ALS, and he used to give a very successful podcast. To someone who's a podcaster, ALS, and losing their voice is probably the worst thing in the world. And when he got back his voice with the ElevenLabs voice, with all of his like happy, emotional speaking ways, he just couldn't stop talking about it. He's like, anytime we asked him for like some testimonials, yeah, here, and ElevenLabs wanted a testimony, yeah, here. It's like, he was just so excited because he was given back the ability to be, do his podcasts, and the feedback he's getting is the same as he was getting before, because he sounds like the same person he was before. We have another client, Jim Halpert, who is general counsel for the NSA in the White House. I think that's in Washington, D.C., whatever. And he also got his ElevenLabs voice, and just a few weeks ago gave some introductory remarks in the White House using ElevenLabs voice. So that's a place to get into. But let's take it to, we have to take it back to the just real life. We have a mother, April in Maryland, April Kerner, she has 3 young children, and she can't speak. Her husband takes care of her and her children, and so first we gave her, maybe about 8-9 months ago, we gave her the ability to use AI to create more conversational speech, so that she may write something like, I'm not feeling great, ALS is a bummer, whatever, like a couple of hints to what she wants to say, and she says, make it into a paragraph, and it becomes an entire paragraph that's true to what she wants to say. If she doesn't like that, she can just hit it again, it gives her a new version. And this was one of those, just using generative AI to give someone, augmenting what they're trying, just so that they can get that extra human touch into the speech. And we then created for her a button which allowed her to create bedtime stories for her kids. So all she had to do with her eye tracker was type in, I want a story about Robert, Jack, and Sue, the names of her kids. It should have unicorns, rainbows, pasta, and Mount Rushmore. And she gets bedtime, a 3-page bedtime story that she speaks to her kids. But ElevenLabs now gave April back her voice. So now she's talking to her kids in her, oops, not my voice now, okay, in her voice. That's something you can't find this anywhere else, where a mother can speak to her kids in her own voice. Like one of the things we used to deal with, people who use a voice-banked voice, if someone is trying to say, I need a blanket, just because of the way the technology used to be, it can come out, I want a blanket. And we've had caregivers quit on ALS patients because they felt they were being talked down to. It was no one's fault, but it was just that someone hearing a voice, I need a blanket, and they're going to use the same sentence every day, and they can sound like they're being talked to in a nasty way. April is creating legacy videos for her kids, but now she's creating it in her voice. These are unbelievable case studies, and by this time next year, we're going to have 300 of these, but it's all new. Thank you.
Amazing, yeah. That's and we will be sharing some of the recordings of before and after Ben's voice for you all to hear afterwards. But it's quite amazing that he's able to kind of keep his podcast going and being able to kind of continue that normality that he has as much as possible. He's dealing with this, so amazing, and thank you so much for sharing that. Maybe switching next to this, like what do we kind of see in the future now? So like what does ElevenLabs need to do more of? What does the tech industry overall need to do more of? We talked a little bit about like on device and being able to kind of have that direction.
I regret asking us to be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Get my notepad up. Yeah, curious just kind of like what you all are thinking of, like, what does ElevenLabs need to do more of? What does the tech industry overall need to do more of? I think that like even panels like today and bringing together resources across Lenovo and NVIDIA and yourself, so like that's a step in the right direction. But what more do we need to do to kind of keep this momentum going in this space?
Yeah, I think there's kind of the basics, right, where we have all this technology that's been developed, and then we have access to, and we just haven't put it all together, right? And it's available, and it's not, we talk about this translation, but that's like not a hard thing to do. I had my boss texted me saying, hey, can you go create this video demo of one of our senior leaders, and and maybe have him say this or that. So I'm like, you want me to create a deep fake? Well, I don't know about that. Word it differently. So
Digital twin.
Not so
twin. So it took me literally 2 seconds while we're texting back and forth. So I went to this tool that I use. I took his face and put him on a gladiator, right? It's on the gladiator poster. I sent it back to her. I said, you mean like this? But where the technology is today, that's where we are. Like we are at the seconds to go and create a deepfake in the technology today. It's not hard to go do that. We're at the phase where we can go take all of our recordings that we've created ourselves, put them into a RAG model, and create our own little personal avatar that we can go talk to. We can kind of lock it in time to say, hey, I want to go take everything that I wrote as an 18-year-old and younger, and let me go put it into a RAG model. Let me go create an 18-year-old version of myself, right? And I can go talk to 18-year-old me. Like we can all do that today, and it doesn't take a lot of work to go pull that together. So the technology for accessibility already exists. We just haven't gone and pieced it together and pulled it together like we need to. So That's where we are today. That's where we're going. So it's
you set the ground for it. That was perfect.
where we're going is, it's even hard for me to imagine if you just kind of look 12 months back from where we are today to where we were 12 months ago. So 12 months, even from today, we build these massive super clusters at Lenovo, and the ones that we are using all this generative AI technology around, we built them, and they're interesting. They're small in comparison to the ones that are actually under development right now. And these are going to be the new engines for these generative AI models that are being trained. So like Llama 3 just came out. Llama 3 came out on a relatively big cluster, but Meta just built a 250,000 GPU cluster. X is building a massive super cluster. Microsoft, I think they bought like a power plant up here somewhere, nuclear power plant, and they're looking at like small little nuclear reactors for their AI systems. But there's a ton of money being dumped into this technology right now to make it even better than it is today, which is kind of neat. So in 12 months, we're going to have better models. So you're all like, well, what does that mean? Well, the models are also become multimodal. So today they're large language models. In the future, there'll be large, modal models. So you can also dump video and pictures and images and audio into these models, anything that you want into these models, and you get your results out of them. So that already exists. Like we built that at Lenovo, and we're testing it out, and we're playing around with it and getting really amazing results on it. But these models are getting bigger, they're getting more impressive. Are they going to be smarter than us? That's always, are they going to be smarter than us? I don't know, 12 months, they'll definitely be very, very advanced. But we're also taking our, I would say our baseline technology of laptops. We're doing something called the AI PC. So there's technology, we're putting neural processing units into every PC. So even on your phones and your laptops, your tablets, you're going to have what's called a neural processor, and that is going to have this multimodal AI system built into it. And that system is now going to be kind of your personal assistant in your device itself. And you can go ask it questions like, where did I leave my keys? Oh, left them in the car, as always.
I need that now.
Yeah. So you don't need your little tile anymore, or your Apple device. The other kind of neat thing, I think, and this is going a little bit further out, where augmented reality is today is you got to go put on glasses. You got to go have something that you're wearing. We have this really cool monitor. I think I was telling some of you guys about it. We have this 3D monitor where it's basically sending two images. So we've got these LEDs that send out two images, so that when you get within like a 45-degree angle of it, you get the two images, one in each eye. So why is that cool? Well, it turns it into a three-dimensional monitor. So you're not wearing any glasses, no goggles. You now see this monitor in front of you. Now, if you think about if you can do that with a monitor and LEDs, imagine going and creating like a room of monitors like that, such as what is it called, the Dome in Vegas, right? The Sphere,
Yep.
The Sphere in Vegas. So now you can have something like the Sphere, where you have all these monitors and you're putting everything in 3 dimensions. So you're basically creating almost like a hologram or a holodeck from Star Trek. So that's coming out in virtual reality. Accessibility becomes equal and even for everybody. So if you think about it from that perspective, so if you can communicate, just like anybody else, if you can move around just like anybody else, you basically break down all those barriers. And so that's where the technology is going, as we can take it further, and that's not far away. It's like 12 months. What do you think?
I'm gonna look at you so I don't get to be quiet. Actually, it's really, really exciting, and building on what you're saying, it's interesting. So first of all, I'm obviously coming from a tech background. I used to Moore's Law, and I don't know if you'd agree with this, but I hear this all over the place. In the AI world, it's 100 days. Every 100 days, the regeneration that's happening and the acceleration is crazy. And I give you a tiny example of this story with Erin and her avatar, and the fact that technology required so much less time. It was uploaded from an iPhone and put out better quality than studio quality, just all of that. I mean, thinking about how mind-boggling that is, to give someone back a voice before diagnosis, and that in itself sounds like a lot, but to do it with so little data, and that's huge and speaks to the acceleration. We have another case, and this is something I very much love about our foundation and I'm very proud of, is Peter, and that's Dr. Peter Scott Morgan, who founded it, very much had a vision from day one. I'm sorry, I'm repeating myself here. Let's go out and build a concept car. It needs to be the sexiest, fastest, that, and the other, and let's scale down instead of starting at the bottom and scaling up. And I appreciate that because we've reached, I feel like, this place where technology, acceleration of AI, and democratization of costs are putting us in a place to not only do that, but to not leave anyone behind in the bigger picture. So, just throwing out another case example, we have somebody that will build a large language model for, like we did for Aaron, but in a much more robust way. It's someone who is a partner in a hedge fund that understands this technology down to the point of where the money's moving within the industry itself. And I remember sitting in a room in your office a week ago with him days ago saying there were only 3 or 4 companies in the world that could do X, Y, Z, starting with Lenovo. And so it excites me to know to be able to have someone that understands this vision that's going to push these technologies. And back to you asked the question, what can ElevenLabs do? Honestly and sincerely, you make my job very easy because first of all, you always say yes. I'm very careful when I try and ask a question to thoughtfully, hopefully remove as many pressure pain points to make it easy when I do have an ask, which, I've discovered. But also, I really think, you're this guiding light for other startups in the ecosystem. And it's interesting also just to tell you how small this world is, which you guys have been speaking to. You have a board member we've been working with for 1.5 years who has ALS. And the one thing I do know in all of this is the moment you do work with someone, have the privilege to get to know someone with ALS, it is impossible to not be a changed human being on many different ways. And it was very telling to me that he had an API key and he couldn't figure out what to do with it. And so I immediately came to you guys, talked to you, it was before I knew about you. And I think having the right people in a startup mentality who have the ability to scale, and we can thank AI for that, but also who have the right business ethos, who have been touched by this disease. And I'm sorry I keep bringing up ALS, but it's such a severe form of a disability. And once you understand that and you realize the power of actually giving someone their voice back, and giving them their humanity itself back to be that person, it's just a privilege to wake up, and it makes my job so easy. I go talk to another startup and I say, look what ElevenLabs is doing. Do you want to be a part of the picture? We're making a public announcement. And it's hard not to answer that. So I really sincerely want to thank you for your leadership. And I also want to say to Lenovo, I try as hard as I can to be humble when I come into Lenovo and remove barriers, whether that's cost, whether it's bringing, and I can't find Emily, whether it's bringing someone from ElevenLabs in, asking for help to have the support to do that. And I just sincerely thank you for getting us in the room, because I think we get more done in this 30 minutes hour than some of us get done in a year between all the conversations, because we have gatekeepers who have this depth of knowledge, who can make things happen. And turns out, I find this over and over again, the engineering exists today. We just need the right people in the room, very much as, thank you for being our check and balance, to make sure we're always considering the end user, and we're as you say, not designing in a vacuum. We're considering the end user, and we're bringing the smartest minds in the room to take advantage of this moment in time.
Wow, I like that. I like that term, the guiding light. That's perfect. I mean, it's sort of like, I also look at you as a guiding light, and I think the first thing to do is don't change what you're doing. That's because everything has been going so well, and for so many different industries, like, it just looks like you're on the right path. So just let's keep it that way. I think it is important to mention, I guess there must have been a conversation between you and John about this, of making sure to include users in the development, because that's something that we actually do most of our programming with ALS patients on the line. That's just like the way we feel it, how it's going, and we make changes, and it's custom programming with the people who need it, and it's amazing how we become so much smarter at what we need to do in order to give people the tools they need to be able to communicate properly. I think that I'm not going to talk about the general AI space that Eric is like, he's the man for that, but I don't know what he's going to tell us in 12 months. But as far as we're concerned, I think that the place where eye tracking is going is like what Eric mentioned before, which is, just imagine an eye tracker which does understand the context of a conversation, is listening to the conversation from both sides, has enough of an LLM to be able to draw upon the data it needs to go and create answers based on that context. If you give an ALS patient 5 choices of what to answer in a conversation that it understands what's going on, you can save an ALS patient a lot of time, an immense amount of time, and you could make them, they can actually be part of conversations they wouldn't be able to be part of otherwise. Bill Mendanza still runs board meetings. He's special. We want every ALS patient to be able to join a conversation and be completely part of it. And we're going to need AI to get us there, no question about it. We have an ALS patient in Connecticut. She said she had a guest over from, I don't know where, it was maybe it was Alabama, I think she said, Georgia. It was from Georgia. She said this woman did not let her get a word in edgewise. That means she would go talk for like 20 minutes. What do you say? And she would, yeah. And then the woman would start again and just start the next 20-minute conversation. We need the AI to make this an equal playing field. And it's 100 days. That sounds like a good deal.
Pretty amazing.
Yeah, 100 days in the AI world is like 2 years in any other industry, so moving very fast. And all the models will be better tomorrow, and this is the worst they all will be, and that's same with ElevenLabs. So, and then in the same sense, ElevenLabs wants to take this opportunity to thank you all, and second, we will be leaning into kind of being that leader in the space, and want to take this opportunity to announce that we'll be releasing an official accessibility and nonprofit program to hopefully be able to work with every single ALS patient and everybody out there who would need to partner with us in the accessibility way. So to kind of working with the folks on stage here today, we'll be putting together what that actually looks like and being able to offer it to every single nonprofit and ALS company out there that is looking to use our technology. So we're very excited about leaning into that more and making it an official program because we've been so moved by all of the success and all of the work that you all are doing. So thank you all for kind of making us realize this opportunity is real and for allowing us to kind of have the ability to have the impact that we've had so far. And looking forward to doing a lot more in this space with you all. And if there's anything else you all would like to say as a closing remarks, I think this might be a good time to wrap it up. But do you guys have any last closing remarks you'd like to say before we?
I mean, just thank you for having us. Thank you for listening. I mean, I think this was a great panel. Thanks for all the panelists. Happy to be part of this.
Yeah, it's been an honor. So thank you all. We do have some time for questions. If anybody has questions or comments or anything else they'd like to say, otherwise we can turn the music back on and start chit-chatting. But does anybody have any questions or anything they would like to ask? No is a fine answer as well, but yes.
I have a question, just hearing all. So I really moved today during all this. I do not have people in my life where most of them passed away last year. I didn't realize there's so much progress has been made. Have you guys thought about doing anything for families who've suffered, lost loved ones who are now maybe looking to recreate some of those posthumously? Are there programs or products available for them?
That's actually one of the a big use case that I didn't realize when I joined ElevenLabs was a use case exactly like that. So we do have a program we work with folks who want to kind of bring back for either a Christmas present or a birthday present or just to have that moment of kind of hearing their voice again. So yeah, that is something that we actually do partner with folks on currently right now. So.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Are we able to show Aaron's avatar?
If we have an adapter, in today's world, every new adapter has a new cord. We don't have that cord. It's the one cord we don't have. What we will be doing is we can pull it up on a laptop and maybe show folks, around today. And then what we will be doing is sending out an email to everybody, kind of doing a general announcement once the program goes live next week, or in the coming weeks, and we'll include those videos and any case studies that you all would like to share. So we'll have to be a little scrappy today and show it on the laptop, but we'll properly get it out to the media eventually.
Yeah, I just wanted to comment in thinking ElevenLabs. I'm Karina, I'm with Bridging Voice, and I think that especially during New York Tech Week, we can all get caught up and so excited about the new technology that's coming out and the potential it has to save the world. And I think something that we say on our team, even though we have a lot of tech geeks on our team that love technology, that technology in itself is not the solution, and that you have to be focused. Technology is a tool, but it's only as good as you put it into practice. And so as Nahum was mentioning, everything we do is with the ALS clients, and that's what makes it so strong. And I see there's so few tech companies that reach out and make these partnerships and say, we want to use this incredible technology that we have to actually make a difference, and understand that you have to partner with the organizations that are working directly with those communities. And that makes all the difference, because we've seen, and Nahum mentioned it time and again, incredible technology that's used as a paperweight because people don't have the support to actually use it and put it into practice. So thank you for helping us sort of bridge that gap and really get it to the people that it's going to transform their lives. And it's just really meaningful. And yeah, thank you for showing us how to.
I 100% agree. It's technology is no good if it's not being used out in the real world, and it takes experts like yourself to kind of know where and when to plug that in, and where to kind of the feedback that we need to kind of be able to build and continue to build products that kind of address those communities. So we appreciate your partnership very much as well.
Maybe we could get your voices to pronounce my name more correctly.
We have a pronunciation dictionary. We'll make sure
We have a
that
whole
that's an
video on
important
that.
one. Well, awesome. Well, thank you, everybody.